Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online character build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, I bring you one of my own character builds. That's right, the Dark Knight is one of my creations, and this one might be a little surprising. We'll see. But before I get started, of course, disclaimer, this is a roleplay, casual play build, not a meta build. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started. So the story for the Dark Knight character originated with my Khajiit Templar that I have, that I played as a healer for a long time, and I switched him over to being more of a paladin type character, or am working on it, I should say. It started with her, and then I wanted to make another Khajiit, and so my sister's friend was telling me about her Necromancer that she was working on, this Necromancer vampire character, and I was like, that sounds so cool. That would be really awesome to make. So the idea of this character is it's a necromancer, but it's a vampire, and she utilizes both like a lot of different abilities within her class, her vampirism, like different things, different schools, like the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, Sigic Order, all that stuff, to take advantage of all those different tools. Primary role of this character is a tank, but they can be a little bit more. But this is the mother of my other character, is the story. And what happened was, she used to be a knight at the Temple of Jodinju. And after she gave birth to her daughter, she was sent out on a mission. You guys know the vampire that's out in Rakul? Or not in Rakul, but in Reaper's March. There's a vampire you fight, and it's near the shrine for the vampire turning ceremony. That's what, in the story, that's who bit her and turned her into a vampire. And so she became a vampire. She went going back to the temple. They found out, and they basically expelled her from the temple. She went out into the world, ended up on the outskirts of Alakir, where she became basically like a recluse in a cave, and basically hunted animals at night to feed on. She wouldn't hurt anyone because she was trained to be a protector and a guardian of people. And during this time, she wound up meeting this old hermit that lived nearby in another cave. And he wasn't a hermit, just a hermit. He was an excommunicated wizard who was trained in the dark arts. And he trained her in those arts, in that art form. And she through years of training, mastered it, and has returned home to Elsweyr when she heard that dragons had returned, to hopefully find her daughter and everything else, and that's the story. So let's get a look at this character. So this is the Dark Knight character. I know what a lot of people are going to say, Batman, Dark Knight, trust me, it plays into it. But that's not where it came from. So as you can see, we have 10 into Magicka, 40 into health, 14 into stamina. This gives us roughly about 34k health, 21k Magicka, 23k stamina. We do have 990 mag recovery with a 902 stam recovery. Our weapon damage isn't too bad, and our weapon critical is kind of low right now, but we're set for tank. You can see we have 22,000 spell resist, 22,000 physical resist. We are using the Lady Mundus Stone. We do get minor protection at all times from Vampire Cloak. You guys will see what that is in a minute. And we are using Tri-Stat Food. The last time I was playing this character, I was doing a test and I died, and so that's why the Soul Summons cooldown is there. Alright, taking a look now at the gear. So I am using tripods as my primary food. I do use Dubious Cameron Throne for when I play as a damage dealer, stamina damage dealer, or I use this if I want to play more hybrid type, but without the use of the health. And then I use the Longfin Pasty Melon Sauce for when I'm tanking. And when I do play healer, I do use the Witch Mother's Potent Brew. I do use the different potions, the stamina power pots, spell power pots for different roles, and then of course the tripods, like I was saying, mainly for when I'm tanking. Now, we're going to go over the sets. Now, the whole idea behind this character is I wanted to make them as close as to some of the vampires you face in the game. So, like the vampire tanks and stuff. So the first thing we have is Bloodspawn. Bloodspawn is from a vampire in Fungal or Spindle Clutch 2 that you fight at the end of Spindle Clutch 2, and it's the monster set that drops in Spindle Clutch 2. So this gives you stamina recovery, and then when you take damage, you have a 6% chance to generate 14 ultimate and increase your physical and spell resistance by 6450 for 6 seconds. This effect can occur every 6 seconds. This goes off a lot. That's a given. We're not using it mainly for the ultimate gen, we're mainly using it for the spell and physical resist because we're a vampire. Next up, we are using Hunting's Rage. I know I've been using this a lot for a lot of different builds, but trust me, it's a really good set, and it's craftable. So we are using this, the 2-piece weapon critical, 3-piece max stam, 4-piece critical, 5-piece weapon damage, and then this is primarily here for when we play stamina-based damage dealer. And then our next set is the Vampire Cloak. Now this drops, I don't remember if it's Bankorai or Rivenspire. It's one of the two. But the set you see gives a 2-piece health bonus, 3-piece spell damage, 4-piece health bonus, and then the 5-piece gain minor protection at all times, reducing your damage taken by 8%. The reason I like this on this character is because of fire damage. That can tear you up. This helps you reduce that damage a lot. So that's the main reason why I use it. Along with the Bloodspawn, this helps you mitigate a lot of damage. Even if you're playing a damage dealer, it can help you mitigate a lot of damage. And the Ultimate Gen is really good for when you're playing either tank or damage dealer, because the Ultimate Gen allows you to drop more ultimates more often. So now going over the traits and enchants, starting with the helm, you can see we have a Divine's Helm with Tri-Stat enchant. The leggings are also Divines with Tri-Stat, and then the chest is Divines with Tri-Stat. This one does take advantage of using the Mundus Stones as best as it can. The smaller pieces are all sturdy, and we do have the split between Magicka on the shoulder and belt, and Stamina on the boots and gloves. Now moving on to the jewelry traits, we do have the 2 trirunes here with the weapon damage enchants. This is to help boost our weapon damage for when we're playing stamina DPS. And then we do have a mag recovery infused on the necklace. And on the bigger pieces here, we do have trirune. I don't remember if I mentioned that. Or tri-stat glyphs. And then moving on to the shield, we do have a sturdy shield with a tri-stat. And then the sword is Nirnhoned with a weakening enchant. The reason why I did weakening was to make it seem like my character, you know, being a vampire, when she hits them with her gaze or whatever, it fears them and makes them scared, and it makes them weak. So I thought that kind of fit with this. Even though it's a small amount, it actually helps out a lot. And then on the back bar, we do have a infused Crusher enchant on a Great Sword of the Vampire's Cloak. Now, the Crusher enchant we can keep up pretty well, so I'll show you guys that in a minute. And then in here, if you guys look, when I'm not tanking, I actually use dual wield. I use a dagger and a sword. One's infused disease. This is Nirnhoned with an absorbed stamina, and then I use a bow back bar for weapon and spell damage. And that's what I use for when I'm playing damage dealer. Or I use my two-handed. Most of the time it's the dual wield because I like it so much. So that's what I do with this character. If I'm playing healer, I don't need to really worry about much because I am a Necromancer, and they have it built into their class skill line. They have enough heals that I don't need to really worry about using the resto staff. Alright, moving on now to the skills. As you can see, I took all the stamina passives, or stamina passive, active abilities in the Gravelord to give myself the ability to use all those stamina abilities when I'm not tanking and I'm using damage. I do have Unnerving Boneyard to apply Major Breach and Major Fracture. And then I do have all the passives unlocked. Now, I do have all the passives unlocked in all 3 skill lines, but here I took all the skills that I felt worked best for me as a tank type character, And then the Living Death, I took all the skills that I felt were best for me as a healer type. So now moving on to the skills, weapon skills. Two-handed, I do have all the two-handed weapon skills unlocked and their passives. And then the same thing with one-handed sword and shield, dual wield, and bow. And as you can see in bow, I took all basically physical damage stuff and one with poison damage. All of these are physical damage. So I didn't want to make this character too similar to other characters. Moving on to the armor. Light armor, I have the top 3 passives. These actually play well into any character if you utilize the Magicka stamina kind of combination like I do to make the characters kind of hybridized. This really helps to take the top 3 here. Normally, most people would just take Spell Ward for the resistance for being a tank, but we also need that reduced Magicka cost and mag recovery. That helps. And then Grace does help with the reduced snares and the reduced sprint cost. Medium armor, I took the top 3 because I like the improved sneak. Usually I wouldn't take this, but with a Khajiit, you can really take advantage of that. And then Windwalker, the reduced stamina cost and the stamina recovery, and then Dexterity, the higher weapon critical. And then, of course, Athletics for the dodge roll reduction and the movement speed bonus. Heavy armor, we have all the passives. Again, I want to point this out. Revitalize increases the amount of magic and stamina you get back from your heavy attacks. So when you use a heavy attack, you get 25% more stamina or magicka back with the base of 30%. And then if you have your Undaunted or your champion points set up right, you can get another 14% with it. That's a 69% return of resources. Moving on to world skills. We are a vampire, but we're going to go over soul magic first. You can take the ones you like. I actually like using these. The ultimate and the active ability sometimes. I'm actually working on leveling them this right now on the live server. Wow, that was a bad tremor. And the soul summons and soul lock are ones I always unlock. Vampire, you can go with the vampire skills you want to use. I like Devouring Swarm with this, and I like Invigorating Drain, and I like Baleful Mists. And then unlock the passives. Moving on to Fighters Guild, we do have all the Fighters Guild unlocked. Skills and passives. The skills I chose fit and reflect my character. Same thing with the Mages Guild. Same thing with the Psijic Order. I did all the passives, and I didn't do the passives here. I'm going to have to go through all my character builds, I swear, because I keep forgetting stuff. But yeah, make sure you learn all the passives and abilities that you think are going to be best to fit your character. Now, it does take a long time to do this because it takes a lot of skill points. So take your time, enjoy the game, unlock things as you go. Undaunted did the same thing, unlock the skills that I thought best reflected my character, and I unlocked the abilities, the passives, to go along with it. The passives here are really important though. Undaunted Metal, super important, and then the Undaunted Command can really help you out. Alliance War, assault skills, I took the ones that best reflected me as a player. Same thing with support. And then moving on to racials. The reason I chose Khajiit for this particular build was because I wanted, like I said, something to fit my other Khajiit. So I'd have a character that kind of, fell into that same story. So they get robustness, which gives them health recovery, stamina recovery, and mag recovery, which kind of plays well into being that hybridized type race. We do get the Lunar Blessing, which increases Magicka health and stamina by 825. Again, more hybridized. And then we get the increased critical damage and critical healing by 10%. And we also get our decreased stealth detection by 3 meters. So this really helps us in that vampire form. Moving on to alchemy. Medicinal use, very important. I'm working on this right now. I'm working on potion crafting, and I'm working on provisioning food. So I can get these unlocked before I hit 50. On live, I'm not 50 yet. I'm working towards making this build on live. So, alright, now let's go over the skills we have on the bar. Starting with the first ability, we do have Pierce Armor. We have this here because this does a decent amount of damage. It is our primary taunt ability, and it does taunt enemies, or hard taunt them, for 15 seconds. It also applies Major Breach and Major Fracture. Next, we have Heroic Slash. We have this because it does reduce movement speed, and it does the Minor Maim for 12 seconds, which reduces the enemy's damage by 15%. We also gain Minor Heroism, granting us 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds. This plays well with Blood Spawn, so that's why I use it in combination. Then we have Spike Bone Shield. We have this here because we need a damage shield. Most tanks will use other shields. I like Spike Bone Shields. It's just really powerful. But this one absorbs up to 34% of your max, gives you a damage shield that absorbs up to 34% of your max health, and it returns 39% of direct damage you take back to the enemy, which is really nice. And also, it's a synergy that somebody can activate. Bone Wall Synergy, granting an ally and up to 3 other friendly targets near them a damage shield that absorbs 58% of their max health for 6 seconds. And then we have our Ruinous Scythe here. This is our primary heal, self-heal. So you're going to slice an enemy dealing X amount of physical damage. Every third cast will set all enemies off balance. And then you heal for X amount of health for the first enemy hit, and an additional X amount of health for each additional enemy, up to 5 times. The healing is scales off your max health. And then we have our Absorb Magic here. This we mainly have for the slotted effect, but it also can give you a damage shield that can absorb up to 20,000 spell projectile, and it will give you 16% of your health back, so it'll heal you. And then while you have a shield equipped, this ability and slotted, the amount of damage you can block is increased by 8%, and the cost of blocking is reduced by 8%. Next, we do have Pummeling Goliath. This is our I'm going to beat the snot out of you thing, is what I like to call it. As you can see, you become a Goliath, a Bone Goliath, that gains 30,000 health and heals for 30,000 immediately. And while transformed, your light attacks restore X amount of health, your heavy attacks restore X amount of health. That is based off your max health. And then your bash attacks can hit multiple targets in front of you that deal X amount of physical damage. So this is why I like this, because when I transform into it, I can just like rapid spam bash and just blow things apart. Alright, moving on to the back bar. We have Carve. Now this is a really good ability. This is what keeps our Crusher applied. It does damage up front, it does damage over time, and it will keep our Crusher applied. And it can keep Crusher up for three times, if you can get it to work. It doesn't work all the time for 3 times, but sometimes it can. Now moving on to the next ability we have Agony Totem. This thing is awesome. It gives you and your group within 6 meters of where the totem spawns minor protection, reducing damage taken by 8%. So this even stacks, this does not stack with your minor protection, but it helps your group. So that's why we use it. After 2 seconds, the totem instills fear in the enemies, holding them in place. It's a great CC. And then on top of that, it is also a synergy that somebody can activate that will make the enemies take X amount of magic damage over 5 seconds and apply minor vulnerability to them for the duration, increasing their damage taken by 8%. Next ability we have is Ghostly Embrace. Now this is pretty cool because this puts a snare for 50% movement reduction for 5 seconds, and it inflicts minor maim to any enemy that gets caught in this pool, these 3 pools or 4 pools or whatever that pop up out of the ground. And then each patch can immobilize 1 enemy for 4 seconds. So we have a lot of really good immobilize abilities here. Next we have Baleful Mist. This is primarily here to, like, you taunt the enemy, you cast this, it only lasts for 4 seconds, but it'll reduce the incoming damage you take by 75%, and it deals magic damage to nearby enemies every second for the 4 seconds. And then entering the form removes and grants immunity to all disabling immobilize effects, but you cannot be healed, and your magic recovery is disabled. That's the only bad thing about it, but it's awesome to use while you're tanking. Next ability we have is Beckoning Armor. This just basically is our Major Ward, Major Resolve buff, and that gives a spell and physical resist of 5,280 for 20 seconds. And then while active, enemies that strike you with ranged attacks will be pulled towards you once every 3 seconds, and it does create a corpse on completion, so kind of nice. The last ultimate we have here, we can swap out with Warhorn from the Alliance War skills if you like. I like using this, and that is Devouring Swarm. Now this thing, you summon a cloud of bats around you that deal X amount of magic damage to nearby enemies every second for 5 seconds, and the bats heal you for 2,000 or for X amount of health for each enemy they damage. So for all the damage that you're doing, you're also healing too. So it's a nice way to self-support and do damage. So I like this ability a lot on this character, so I leave it all the time. And then on the front bar, of course, I use Pummeling Goliath a lot, unless I'm in damage dealing role, and then I switch to Dawnbreaker. So but that is the skills and stuff. Now we're going to go take a look at the CP. Starting with the red tree, I think I might have to fix a few things here. Yes, I will, but that's okay. We do have 66 into Ironclad. This reduces damage taken from direct damage attacks by 22%. We do have 31 into Thick Skin, reducing your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 56 into Hardy, reducing damage taken from physical poison, disease damage by 12%. And then 56 in Elemental Defender. Now I remember why I did this. Reducing your damage taken from Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 12%. You know that minor protection we have on our character at all times? That applies to Elemental Defender and Hardy. So we actually have a 20% damage mitigation from Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage, and then also physical poison, disease damage. Thick Skin stacks with that, and so does Ironclad. So this 22% becomes 42%, and the 31 or 13% becomes 33%. So we actually get a really high damage mitigation from different sources. Moving on, we have 40 into Bastion, increasing our effectiveness or damage shields by 16%. We have 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing our healing received by 5%. And then 2 into Heavy Armor Focus, increasing our physical resistance by 209. Not really a big deal, but we had 2 points left over. Put it someplace we can take advantage of it. Moving on to the green tree, we have 40 into Warlord, reducing our break free cost by 16%. 16 into Sprinter, reducing our sprint cost by 10%, and then 16 into Bashing Focus, reducing our bash cost by 10%. We do have 43 into Mooncalf, increasing our stam recovery by 10%, and 75 into Tenacity, increasing our mag and stam return of our fully charged heavy attacks by 14%. Moving on over here, we have 40 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 16%. 40 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 16%. And then moving on over here, we have 43 into Blessed, increasing our healing done by 10%. 23 into Elfborn, increasing our critical damage and critical healing of magic abilities by 10%. 43 into Elemental Expert, increasing Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 10%. This is mainly for when we use magic abilities that we have this stuff here. It's really hybridized. 16 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases your light attacks with one-handed sword and shield, and dual wield, and two-handed, and bow, and werewolf, all that stuff, by 10%. And then we have 23 into Mastered Arms, increasing your damage done with direct damage attacks by 10%. Moving on over here, we had 43 into Physical or Mighty, increasing physical poison disease damage by 10%. We have 23 into Precise Strikes, increasing critical damage and critical healing with stamina abilities by 10%, and then we put 40 into Thaumaturge to increase our damage over time effects by 16%. Since we are using several damage over time effects within the class, it's better to take advantage of that. And then we also have 16 into Piercing, increasing our physical penetration by 1,500. And you can go with the standard setup here, 23, 20, 40, 35, 43, 23, 43. You can go with that setup here too if you want. I just like this for this particular character. Alright, now let's move on to taking a look at this build in action, because that's the main deal here. So this character, like I said, is pretty powerful in what it can do. It's a really interesting character. We're going to take it over into our favorite dungeon, of course, which is Depths of Malatar right now. And I can't wait for the 2 new dungeons that are going to be coming out in August. They announced those at the E3 last night. I'm super stoked for that, and I'm also super stoked for the last DLC of the year for the Dragon, Season of the Dragon. Because Sai Sahan's returning. They should have brought Lyris back. But we'll have to see.
Your note said abandoned, as in no one left behind inside.
Alright, so let's go in here. Let's tank this dungeon. Now, I will go probably all the way to the boss, just so you guys can see what that's like. Alright, let's go ahead and buff up. Drop our agony totem. I'm hitting the wrong button there. Here, have some bashing ability. Look at this. Bam, 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 bam. Nuclear death. I just spammed all my stamina away. And then, like I said, you can also go misform. And even in misform, you can pull enemies to you, so it's really cool. Oh, I screwed up there. I meant to swap bars and then do my side. And I did it again, but that's okay. Do-do-do. Yeah, if you look at the damage these guys are doing to me, it's really small. And that's because I have that weakening enchant and the minor maim I can put on them, so... Why don't you die? Here, have some baths, people. Okay, maybe we won't try and fight the boss. Alright, yeah, we're not going to go for it. It would take me too long because my damage is awfully weak. But you guys can see it actually works pretty well, and it's actually kind of a nice, different type of tank. And I really enjoy playing this. Even on live, I've been enjoying the heck out of it. I'm almost level 30 now, and just loving the content with this character. It's so much fun, and I'm having a blast playing it. So that's pretty much it for this build. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.